and welcome to Really with Tom and Dave. I'm Dave Foley, and Tom Wheeler is...
I'm here.
Ah.
Yeah, here I am. Dave, we can be excited about today's guest. I want you to know we are finally getting to the truth of Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. We have with us TJ Allard, who is an executive producer on Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel. If you're not watching, you're a fool. TJ is a two-time Emmy Award-winning producer, showrunner, and on-camera host. He was the supervising producer on over 100 episodes of NBC's Open House NYC and Daycover with Libby Langdon and Foundations for NBC Universal, and garnered Emmy Awards for his production work on the home renovation show George to the Rescue. I'm so excited. We've got 1,000 questions for TJ,
Yes.
and let's get going.
All right. Hello.
Hey, hello.
There he is.
Okay.
TJ. My big question has to do with why are you allowing Thomas Winterton to continue to be on the ranch, given he's like a human danger bomb? This is the bravest individual I've ever seen, but how's he doing? How's his head? And why does he continue to go to this Skinwalker Ranch?
So if you know Thomas, or if you knew Thomas, you would understand why. There is no way you're going to stop him from doing what he wants to get done and what he wants to do. I think it's now a mission in his world. So that's the reason Thomas is going out there. There's nothing you could say or do to stop him if you wanted to. So that's why.
He is a brave fellow.
Now, for people who aren't maybe haven't watched The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch,
and you should.
They should immediately.
You should,
because
yes.
It's such compelling television. But I want to ask you, before coming on to this project, you've been a producer of a lot of television shows, a lot of sort of documentary and reality television, and had you any interest in the subject of these weird subjects of UFOs and paranormal and events?
Okay. Yes, but no, I wouldn't say too much more than anyone else. I had an interest in it, and since I was a kid, all aliens exist. My parents were like, "Oh, you're crazy." And I guess you do the things in high school, and when you go out and you go to like look for haunted places and things like that. But it wasn't a driving force for me. Like I wasn't looking to do a show in this genre in particular. And I think that's why this show is so successful, and I think why previous attempts at doing something in this area didn't go as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with I always equate it to when any other TV show or attempt was made to cover this, like the UFO topic, right? With quotes, it was always people who were interested in UFOs but didn't do television. I was a television producer who just tried to apply my television skills to a different genre. And I think that's why it worked. Instead of like being a UFO fan who wants to make a show, I was a guy who makes shows who just wanted to do something on that topic.
Well, how did this project come to you?
Yeah.
Who
brings Skinwalker?
It was a challenge, literally. Yeah. So it was one of those challenge accepted type of moves. So when you're pitching shows, I'm sure you guys know, it's a constant, it's a numbers game. And you're kind of at the whim of networks, and that's, you get your mandates and you're trying to find, match up show ideas and try to find topics. There was the Curse of Oak Island was, a hit at the time, or was just starting to become a hit for A&E or for History. And whenever, you're pitching, they're always like, hey, we want something to a companion to this show or something like this. And what I tend to do is I talk, I've done some of these interviews in the past, and what I like to say is, you don't want to go too far outside the box, right? You don't want to pitch things too far outside the box. You want to pitch around the box. And then what happens is you just pitch just around the edges, and then the box moves around you once you become successful. And in this case, what we did, is we pitched right on the very edge of boxes. And we said, hey, you have a great concept with the Curse of Oak Island. Is there any chance of trying to do something paranormal, like a paranormal Oak Island? And the idea that they kept coming back with was, you can't do that because there isn't a location. I was like, well, there's a couple. And they're like, yeah, well, there's only two locations, we could think of. And it was Area 51 and Skinwalker Ranch. And nobody can get to any of those, either of those places. And that was challenge accepted. And so it took me 2 years. Well, 18 months of digging and tracking the owner down and hounding him and hounding Thomas Winterton for a year.
Interesting.
Constant text messages. And the backstory is insane because it was a lot of investigation on my part. And I was doing this on my own. So my producing partner, Joel Patterson, and I, so we went to college together. So we knew each other before we got in the industry. And then he was a creator of Counting Cars, one of the creators of Counting Cars, and showrunner for Pawn Stars. At the time, like I was at NBC. And we had kind of both left and started doing our own thing. We were like, hey, let's start pitching stuff. And so Joel and I, like during these pitches, it was a constant, and he wasn't in contact with him. It was just me. I'm like, listen, I'm going to go after this. And as you guys know, nobody's paying you to do research, right? You're doing this on your own. And this is just, I got to get this done somehow, much to the chagrin of my wife. And it was constantly texting Thomas. I mean, like clockwork to kind of get him to at least talk to me. And I chose Thomas because in the initial research, I found his was one of the only names, actually the only name that was public associated with the ranch that I could, and someone that I could connect with. And it was because these stories are nuts, man. It was because Thomas appeared as it was a proxy in a local suit from one of the neighbors of Skinwalker Ranch, asking them to remove some obstruction from the road. And he was appearing on Brandon's behalf, and to keep Brandon, the owner, like hidden. And the whole story, I mean, I could go on the story behind it for hours, but it ends with Brandon had started a company called Adamantium LLC. And if you know what adamantium is, it's what Wolverine's claws are made out of.
I was going to say, I wasn't sure that's where we were going, but yeah, it's Wolverine's claws. Yes, okay.
Here's this, super successful, wealthy real estate developer who starts a shell company in Delaware, because you don't have to publish names in Delaware, and named after a superhero's claws. And so eventually when you track him down, I'm at least a year's worth of texts with Thomas, months of research, and then finally a year back and forth with Thomas. Then Thomas kicked me up to Jim Morse. So Jim is on the show. And Jim was more of they call him Uncle Jim. Jim became he was vetting me as well. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that that you're really are who you say you are, that you can do what you say you can do. And that you're not, because as you can only imagine in that realm, there people say a lot of things that aren't necessarily factual. There's times where people approach things with they have loose relationships with the truth, and someone can say, "Oh, I could get you on TV. I want to make a show," and it's like, okay, no, sure you can. Yeah. And so they wanted to make sure that we were able to produce, to do that, and then eventually getting to Brandon, 2 a.m. phone calls, and then once we did talk to him, and we got through the process, bringing him to A&E and history. They didn't even know his first name. In the first meeting we had with one of the executive producers from history, we brought him out to Salt Lake. We sat down with Brandon, and he referred to the owner as Poe. We used to call him Poe, as property owner for short. So for the first year of relationship of our pitching, we were referring to him as Poe because it was part of our, you got to have mystique to it. You got to get them interested, right? The network got to get them interested, and it's like, no, we can't really reveal this guy. He didn't want to be revealed, but. So that's kind of I skip over a lot of stuff. I'm trying to get it all out to you.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
And I want to hear
interested in all those details.
What was the ranch? What was the ranch's function? It's owned, right? Brandon Fugel owns it at the time that you're going after. You're trying to find him, but what was its purpose? Were they researching it? Was it just sitting there? What was the
team from the show? Were they already in place doing research when you approached them?
Oh,
yes, they were already. It was so. This is why. This is why it was so interesting to a network, because they're like, wait a minute, we have to do no development, no casting. We could just be a fly on the wall and watch what's happening.
I love
it. Like, yeah, pretty much. And they're like, no, because they don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And so that's why that was what really, I think, helped push it. But when I pitched it to them, I pitched it as a paranormal Oak Island. I'm like, listen, this is your paranormal Oak Island. It's the only place you're ever going to have it. We're not getting in Area 51. And this is the opportunity. We had taken it to Discovery as well, and Discovery was like, not so interested. And then they did a spinoff right now called Blind Frog Ranch, which is a direct ripoff. And we talk to them pretty regularly still, and they're like, we really blew that one.
Yeah.
Well, they're like Petticoat Junction to your Green Acres.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there you go.
The immediate. I was thinking exact same comparison, Dave. Yeah, that was my.
Green Acres, obviously, the superior show.
Clearly, yes, no question. I know. I'll go with you, TJ. We'll just assume we know what he's saying. So this is built already, sort of set up research-wise. Do you then bring Travis in? Was he involved with them or?
No, not at the time. So the way it works is, so I'm the company. Me and Joel, we're Letter 10 Productions. And so so it's a co-pro, right? A co-production with us and Prometheus. So what happened is, as you get into your negotiations, it's, they have approved vendors. I'm giving you guys the inside baseball part of it because I feel like you understand a lot of the podcasts or things that I do. If you don't know the industry at all, you don't really understand like a lot of this part of it. Mm-hmm. And so it was a co-pro situation where we bring it to history because of our previous relationships and Joel's success there. And they want you to partner with one of their approved vendors. In this case, it's Prometheus, who has, a number of hit shows on the network already. And it was, you're kind of like, so the president of history was like, listen, we want to put you with them. They're going to be it on the ground. And, it's our intellectual property. It's our IP, our vision, our show. But they're going to run the day to day. And doing so history partnered us with Prometheus, and the owner of Prometheus, Kevin Burns, who recently passed away, I'd say like 2 years ago, he's the one who brought Travis in. So Travis got to the show through Kevin, and Kevin had done a show with Travis previously called Rocket City Rednecks, I believe it was, under the Prometheus banner. And so once, when I sat down, we had dinner, the first time I met Kevin, and we're talking, and he was like, because in the pilot episode, I'm actually the Travis character. Now, I'm a data scientist. I have just recently I have my master's degree, so I'm technically a scientist, but I don't have 3 PhDs and do rocketry and all of that. And so, when I met with Kevin, I was kind of the placeholder guy. If we wanted to go with the average guy, kind of investigates this stuff, great. I was that guy. But if we wanted to go with a credentialed scientist or someone that could really guide the science experiments, you needed someone more credentialed than myself, and even Eric Bard, who Eric's, a genius in his own right. And so Kevin was like, yeah, you're not the guy. I got somebody else we're bringing in. And I was like, hey, that's great. It's still my show.
Although you're very telegenic. I'll say that.
Yeah. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So Eric was on board as a researcher from the outset.
Eric, yes. So Eric was there. And he, in that first season, you'll see like he had built a Satan box, it was called. It stands for like SATAN, has like some kind of, it's an acronym for some kind of measurement, whatever measurement devices that, measures like ground movement and I don't even remember what all of the measurements were, but they were like these black boxes that he called Satan. And he had Satan pits, so to speak, he called them. And there were these concrete pits all around the ranch where he would put all of this mechanical gear. And this was happening without a show. So just keep in mind, and this is all going on.
The obvious question is, who resented Travis more, you or Eric?
I don't think anyone resents. Listen.
Who's this guy coming into our ranch?
Yeah. So, the sciencey guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the southern accent. So Travis, listen, I love him. I think he's great.
He is great.
Great for the show. And he much better off than I would have been, because my experiences out there, like, I'm good. I'm never going out again. I will never go there again.
What was your experience? I'm dying to know.
Yeah.
I've had I had a number of them. I got really, really sick. So a lot of the stuff that happened to Travis with the burns and the burns on his hand, I think it was on his head.
Yeah.
I experienced a lot of those same things as well. I had a terrible respiratory issues as well being out there. Heart issues, like all kinds of stuff. So that when I would come back to New York and go to the doctor, 9 months I was at the doctor's, like going in and out with no way to identify what was going on. And I was suffering from, so I'd like to, this is an interesting part of the story because I was having residual effects. Now they call it the hitchhiker effect. I don't know anything about a hitchhiker effect, but what I do know is that I would hear sounds. And have you ever heard the term pareidolia? Pareidolia is like when you look at a cloud
and see faces.
Or it's like an elephant. And so my interpretation of, after months and months of thinking I'm going nuts because I'm hearing music in my head, my interpretation was I was having like audio pareidolia. Like I was having, my ears were ringing, and eventually it was making a pattern or a sound in my head, but it was all self-induced. Like it was probably like tinnitus, but eventually your mind starts to play tricks on you. You're like,
right,
why am I hearing music? But it wasn't. It was just a constant irritation. And that, along with the respiratory problems, like going in and out of the doc, doing this like iron lung stuff and these midichlorian challenge. I was doing all kinds of testing and they couldn't figure it out. It was just this constant sickness that the doctors in New York said that we weren't able to test for because, and I mean, this is something I learned. Like, so when you do blood tests, what they explained to me was different regions of the country have different, whatever they're called, like lab things that they test for. And we may not in the Northeast have had I want to say it's called palate, in like the testing palette that they would use in the Southwest to say, oh, this is an infection caused by whatever. And so I had, the idea of this like audio hallucinations, this long-term respiratory infection, my heart rate kept jumping. We have video of me like being pulled out of a ditch while we're digging, and my heart rate's like 140. And I'm a pretty healthy guy. It's not like that should be happening to me. And so, I managed to kind of talk all of those, like put legitimate explanations behind them. And, but I have no interest in going back. I think I'm good. Yeah.
You've stayed away from the ranch since then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I haven't been there in years. Listen, whatever it is, like something's going on. I'm just not interested in going through that. Yes. Like I'm susceptible to whatever it is that's out there. And I'm not saying that like it's some magical woo thing. I'm saying whether it's caused by the ground, whether it's caused by the air, whether it is something, some kind of pollen. I don't know what it is, but
well, I'm curious.
I'm very susceptible.
I was curious about whether or not, because one of the things when you're watching the show, the crew is, because you do the job because the job is being done so well, is invisible. You don't think about the crew. You don't think about the fact that yes, you have these researchers, you have the staff of the ranch itself, but on top of that, you have all the people necessary to be there to make a show. So you're crewing up. You've got camera operators. I'm assuming probably lighting director, or at least some sort of.
It's a full crew. Yeah. There are a lot of people out there. One of the questions we'll get a lot is does equipment go down? Or of course it does. But why do you want to go meta and show that? And just for the record, like I'm not writing stories or anything like that. I'm not part of the storylines. I'm not part of the day-to-day at all anymore. I talk to the guys because they become my friends. Like Jim, they call my son calls him Uncle Jim, because they've known him since he was really little. Like these guys, I helped get them on television when no one else was able to do that. It was, the right place, right time with a lot of legwork involved. So, the overnight success that, 3 years in the making, you know what I mean? Like that, right. It wasn't like that. And he had spent, tens of millions of dollars, at least I want to say it was over $10 million already in research of his own money without any interest in a TV show. And didn't even want to be on camera. In our pilot, we had a voice box where he's like, yes, blah, blah, blah. It was like, oh, cloak and dagger, like didn't want to be known because he was afraid, the owner that is, was afraid of being exposed.
Well, I know Jeremy Corbell is a friend of mine. I know he had done a documentary about Skinwalker. And I know in that, Brandon Fugel did not appear on camera. He did sort of the shadowy figure interviews.
Yes. Listen, that was around the same. It was just around the same time his stuff that happened. But the difference was he had gotten access to kind of experience it, but he wasn't allowed to provide any new footage. And we had probably got there maybe 6-8 months beforehand. So it was the, we were the build, the selling point was, hey, first time ever, new footage from Skinwalker Ranch. That was one of the selling points as well. But Jeremy does great stuff, man. Like, he is in it in a much bigger way than I am. I'm still, I did this. You know what I mean? Like, I got a show going about the topic, but I'm not as.
And it's, but I think you've said something emotional that's definitely changed the public consciousness about this, because I think for all the stuff that's been written about in the past, like the George Knapp book and the previous documentary and all that, this has kind of really made Skinwalker more broad. People are more broadly aware of it as a result of this show.
Yes, and that was one of the big selling points again, because when you're pitching it and you're packaging it and you're showing them analytics of how much traffic there is just built in. You guys have done no money on PR, nothing. We're coming to the table with 15 years of history or 20 years of history, in and out of public consciousness. Movies were made, other stuff was made, documentaries, books. It's like it's the perfect storm where it's a much easier lift for a network to get behind it. And it did. And I think, I don't ever say this. This is probably the first time I'm going to say it. Like, because of what myself and my partner did, that's why UFOs are as big as they are now. Because we did it just in 2017 as this was happening. Like, if we weren't there to elevate it at the time, it would have not gotten the traction. It would not be in the public consciousness the way it is. And Jeremy is a big part of that as well. We're not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying, like,
no.
Well, this takes it to the next level.
Oh yeah.
And the way you've changed the trajectory of Travis's career, because we found out, at the beginning of the season that he was appointed as the lead scientist on the UAP task force that he had to keep secret for over a year or 2 years. Was that he was? Yeah,
a while.
Yeah.
I don't even have all the details anymore of that. Like, who knows, right?
So the show changed. He's now become, he was a rocket scientist, and now he's the UFO scientist of record. Yep.
And what it's great about it is it adds a layer of credibility to this that I think is really helping. I mean, look, we're killing it right now. Our ratings are higher than they were in season 1. Which, week after week, which is amazing. And it's just kind of like nothing gets 4 seasons anymore. Who gets 4 seasons on anything anymore? Like, you just don't.
No, it's crazy.
That's why I understand it like you guys do.
Yeah, I know. No, 4 seasons on, it's unheard of. But, well, I have to say, after watching 10 years of Oak Island, I feel like Skinwalker is my reward. It's like more happens in one episode of Skinwalker Ranch than in the 10 seasons of Oak Island, a show that's near and dear to my heart. But my wife and I watch it with a certain masochistic, energy of like, and it somehow the limits of that show gives it its own credibility, right? Because they're pulling up wood at the end of every season finale, and you're going, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck did I just sit through for fucking hours? And you come back, and it's just this terrible, like, kind of tease. But this show up is different. Look, I had to get that out. That's been building for a long time. I love that. Yeah. So having said that, this show does it's on a fence, right? It's entertainment. Clearly, it's entertaining. It's designed as entertainment, and yet there is now this credibility question. It's at the front of the line in terms of people plugging into this phenomenon, in terms of the players involved. Because Travis is now in the government, and then the Jay Stratton is coming in, and there's all this kind of. So I guess my question is, as a fan, but also as someone, I am concerned a little bit about about the nature of this conversation, not our conversation, but just the UFO conversation, right? Because there's the real sensationalistic aspect, and then there's like this real fucking story that's happening that's really important and is happening in the government right now and is becoming. So that boils down to what is post like in this show, like the post-production process, because is there ever
Forever.
there's this sense of like, oh, well, can we make that orb a little brighter? Or like what? I'm just, how does...
Or could Dragon go on a date?
Well, there's always...
Listen. So, yeah.
not in that
intense?
uniform. Yeah.
Please, God, no. Not in uniform. So, again, I'm not in post on this at all, but I know from talking to, where I speak with, it is intense because there's so much of it. I mean, you're out. I don't even want to quote what I think the last number was, but I feel like it's something stupid, man. It's like 30 hours per minute or something like that. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It's a lot of footage. I mean, that might be a somewhat.
That seems reasonable.
Somewhat,
Yeah, no, I can believe that.
That seems a reasonable ratio.
It's a lot, and that there's no, when you see it. So from they know what they have when they're there, right? Oh my God, like, so there's no surprise unless it's Eric. So Eric Bard is that guy. Like he's out there when we're not shooting. Like, I mean, I talk to him all year round. He's out the ranch alone with Thomas. Like, it'll be him and Thomas, and and then either Caleb or Dragon around. But Eric's in that building by himself, day after day after day after day after day, still working it. And so he knows. And when they don't catch stuff during the episode, and the rest of the crew, when people don't see it, the stuff that's found after, Eric lets you know, like, I found that after because I watched 300 hours of footage in slow motion or fast forward, and I applied this and this, and the guy is just on another level. But there's just so much, man. There's so much going on out there, and I try not to be, I say it again, like, I try not to be hyperbolic about any of this because you don't need to be, right? There's stuff happening. Like, my story is my story. What happened to me happened to me. I'm not attributing it to anything because I don't know. But
no, were you ever able to do the blood work up in Utah to see if there was any difference in results? Or
no, I just want to go back, man. I was home.
They could just send your blood, couldn't they? Send some
I
blood
could probably.
His wife was saying you are not going back to fucking Skinwalker.
But you didn't.
Listen, there's more.
And
to
I
that
was going
story,
to say, considering. Oh, go on. There's more.
No,
to the story?
I want to hear your question. We'll get to that.
Well, my question was basically that. It was like, considering what happened to you and obviously what happened to Thomas and repeatedly, as you're crewing up this show, how much disclosure did you have to give to these people? I mean, how much information did you have about the potential risks going into this?
No, they know. Everyone signs a waiver before they go on site. Like, they sign a waiver, a health waiver. They know what they're putting themselves in.
They're told about past occurrences.
Yeah,
so these are interesting people that choose to be on this crew.
Yes, they are. You have to have. It's funny you're saying this because I try to explain to people sometimes. And I always go to the ghost hunting shows because.
Right.
When I think of the ghost hunting shows, I'm like, you're looking at a guy's face and he's scared, but there's a guy with a camera walking backwards. So whatever he's looking at, scared of, this guy is behind him.
Yeah.
So he's like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? Like,
yeah.
You got to understand that these guys are hardcore production people. Like, you don't go out there not accepting risks. And to me, I always bring it back to the TV angle of things. That's how I see the world, right? I always see it through production lenses and pun intended, I suppose. But those guys are pretty intense, and they all know though, and I think it's a lot of the same people now.
Camera operators are all a little bit crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they are.
They're like,
they want to be in the shit.
Yeah, they take amazing risks. Camera operators in my history of being in this business.
So going back to, because I am fascinated about what you thought you might be getting into, visiting the ranch, and then what it became, which is sort of not funny at all. Like, I don't know, were you like, oh, I'm gonna go to the haunted place or skin, like I know it's cool, like I know it's like a cool idea and a great idea for a show, obviously, and you were correct, but the actual phenomenon itself, do you feel like you take the phenomenon seriously at the time, or what was your attitude towards it? And then
if you'd heard there was a risk in going there, how
Yes,
seriously did you take it?
Yes, I read the books. I read the book, listened to anything I could to kind of prepare myself. And yeah, I guess in the back of my head, I kind of maybe something, but I don't know. It's funny because I'm such a jaded cynic from working in TV so long, right? You always think like,
sure.
it's all BS. It's BS. Everything's BS. And it's the way that stuff is presented on TV at times, and I tend to use these old school ghost hunting shows a lot, where it's like the guy wants to rip off his shirt with a night vision camera and fight a ghost, and then he goes home. Like he stays there for the weekend and goes home. Like, okay. So seeing that, I'm like, yeah, well, that's probably not what's going to happen. But I am going out into the woods. Like my wife, one of her concerns was like, you don't really know these people. You've never met these people. You're going out into the middle of nowhere. It's like that to me is a bigger risk, right? Like if you think of, we know there are crazy people in the world that we.
Is it a cult? Who are these? Yeah.
I have some other stories about that, but yes, there's evidence of people being abducted, people just being just disappearing, going away for something. Well, that's a real possibility. And I was like, no, I'm okay. To go with Joel, and we're going to be okay. And I trust these guys, and I talked to them for so long. But when I got out there, some of the people who lived in the area, like they were like, listen, don't go on the property. Like you have to. They gave me a power stone that I had to keep on me. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Man. Like whatever I got to do, that's fine. They some ritualistic stuff where they would do, they would pray before we'd go and burning stuff, and some of the Native Americans in the area, like when you go on, and it was a it kind of makes things real.
Yeah,
because
did that give you pause? When
absolutely.
These people are wanting to take care of you in this way.
Yes, absolutely. It's unnerving because it's like, well, why are they people okay? Like,
because they
how
have
do you
generations
process
of generations of exposure to this phenomena.
Whatever it is that's doing this, I don't know. I don't know what to expect anymore. I was trying to make sure that I have a family, and I was taking care of myself for my benefit and my family's benefit. But so any opportunity to like use something that they were providing,
sure,
like I'm going to take advantage of it. Same with my partner, but so it becomes real when, I'm not sick while I'm out there, but the phenomenon becomes real when, you, for the first time, like I witnessed like a drone falling out of the sky, our drone. My drone's fine. There's no reason my drone's falling out of the sky. Like when you start seeing the things happen with your own eyes for the first time, like, yeah, batteries die. My phone, in episode 1, season 1, the phone that Eric has in the show is my phone. It bricked while I was out there for no reason. It's a brand new frigging phone. Just up and died, like literally died while we were on set. It never was able to be turned on again. He took it apart and did all this, and no idea. But there's when you see those kind of things happen, you're like, what the hell? What's going on? Like, I'm pretty sane guy. Like I don't expect these things to happen. And again, I don't know. My first instinct, I'm always looking for the plausible solution. It's radiation.
How long were you out there shooting the pilot? How long did the pilot take to produce?
I've gone out there multiple times. So I'm going to say probably a couple of weeks at a time, maybe 3 or 4 times. So, over the course of a few months, going back and forth for a couple of weeks at a time. It wasn't all just shooting. There was a lot of other stuff going on as well. I mean, there's a lot of, as there's a lot goes into getting this off the ground. And, it was, but the whole experience was great. Nothing was happening to me physically while I was, except for the heart thing, the heart racing thing.
All right. That was while you were there.
That was while it pulled me out of a ditch.
But that's pretty alarming. That's pretty alarming on its own.
It was.
To suddenly have a racing heart for no reason.
Yes. I try to gloss over, like I try not to, what the hell was that? And then sometimes I feel like, wow, that was pretty stupid to put myself in a hole and know that, a Geiger counter is going off. There's other stuff going off, and it's like, yeah, but I'm here to dig, so we're gonna get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, don't dig, never dig. That seems to be the rule. And is at times when your phone bricks out and when the drone falls out of the sky and you're saying like this bananas, like what is going? Are you also going like, this is gonna be a fucking great show? Like this is gonna fucking rock, man. It's like
yeah.
You're right on. I mean, you're being torn because you're like, holy shit, this is really happening. And did you get that? Did you get the shot? Like,
yeah, right.
We had camera guys there with us. Like, did you get that?
Yeah.
And what's the size of the crew you're working with there? Like, how many camera operators do you have?
Well, now I couldn't even tell you now. It depends.
Obviously, there's all the stationary cameras throughout the ranch as well that you're accessing.
Yeah. So when I was out there, I mean, we brought three camera ops with us. But Eric at that time only had, I want to say like 30 something cameras stationary set up. And now it's way more. Like you don't see anywhere near what's, on the show, what's out there and what what he really is capturing. It's just so much more. It's boring. You know what I'm saying? Like you couldn't.
Yes.
What are you gonna do? Watch.
And you also
watch.
And also on the show, you tend to splinter off your crews on that show. Were you doing that in the pilot? So you must have had multiple like sound recordists as well.
No, well, that's funny. Yes, we did, and we're glad we did because there were times when sound recording stuff would go down all the time, and we would have these great interviews. And because a lot of the people that we started the show with, like one of them died. This guy Junior Hicks, he was like the historian. He was the guy who like brought the local guy who wasn't just focused on Skinwalker Ranch. He was the historian of the legend of the Skinwalker and all of these crazy phenomenon that would happen in that entire basin. And he was like in his 80s. He'd been for like 50 years keeping records of all of these things. And we had gotten him and done a couple of great interviews with him. And it was almost like clockwork. Like anytime you'd have him mic'd and you're running sound, his mics always died, no matter what. Brand new batteries, always went down. And it becomes like, well, they don't want, nobody wants to hear what he has to say. You got to make sure you can't hear what he says. And, but he was, it happened to him a lot. The drone fell out of the sky multiple times. Like it would just stop or it would freak out and stuff would just happen. Camera gear was gone pretty regularly. A lot. One of our best interviews, I was going to say, when we were shooting, putting a package together. It was, we had this great interview, a stand up, probably like 2 hours long with this woman. Nothing recorded. Nothing.
Really?
Like, it's like, come on, and we're professionals, right? Like,
yeah, you're monitoring. You got a lot of
readouts.
That's
on there. Yeah,
it's recording. Like, I don't care. It's recording. In my entire career, never have that stuff happen. If it does, it's because somebody didn't push the button.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But there's
I've never heard of that happening on any set I've ever been on.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
that's just not a thing. It's not a thing.
Yeah, You look at your panels and everything seems to be working. There, it's working.
Yep.
Did you ever have the chance to just say to Brandon or Eric, okay, guys, just between you and me, what the fuck is going on here? Like, what is there fucking a ship in the mountain? Is there give me theory. I mean, I know they postulate a lot. They're not shy about throwing out intense ideas on the show, but I was just curious when you were with them and they're doing this research on their own, Brandon's obviously invested money into this place. Millions. And what do you think they think? Or what do you
So that's a great question. And I've watched it kind of change over the last few years. It's nobody knows what is going on.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. What I feel that's happening is the narratives, the public is creating narratives that they're placing on it. And you can't, it's like playing whack-a-mole. You can't address every single one, right? And if you don't, then it's like, oh, they're not addressing this, it's a cover-up. It's like,
right.
No. Eric has always said, I'm an observer. When I first met him, he's like, look, we're doing observational science here. I am not, he was adamantly opposed to doing rockets, to digging. Eric wanted no part of any of it at all. Like, to the point where he would get freaking angry and flip out. Like, listen,
Really?
I don't want, no, this is not what we're here for. We know what happens when we do this. And here comes this guy who just wants to start poking shit. No. And
So he was such a believer, he was so aware and conscious of the threat and the actual effects that doing all this stuff, he was afraid of the results.
yeah, it was more of, I don't know if he was afraid of the results. It was, maybe that's a good way to say it, I guess, because I think he was just trying to err on the side of caution and be smart. Like,
Right.
if you know that if somebody does this, something bad's going to happen, then guess what you do? You don't do this thing.
Well, you definitely felt that tension in season 1, where it seemed like when Travis came in, he kept saying, "Let's do," there was, and everyone else was going, maybe, no, I don't know about doing that.
Dragon got pissed too.
Yeah, about the dig.
He
about,
did.
Digging. Where it seemed like there was that internal tension there. Like, don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I'm with you. And I was with him, and I think that they were all, it doesn't translate as well on television. I don't think it's what they were really experiencing. Like, these guys, it almost looks campy when you see that they're kind of afraid, but they were genuinely afraid. Like, that's not BS. Like, and they're not actors. This is one of the hard things, you got to explain to people. Like, these are guys, right? Brandon, these are he hired them. He's worked with Eric for years. He's known Dragon most of his life. Well, Bryant, most of his life. He's known Jim. He's done business with Jim for 20, 30 years. Like, if you just step back and look at the profiles of these pictures, or the profile of the people, they don't strike you as people that are going to go like Indiana Jones, right? Like, they're not out looking for trouble. They're successful, measured people. And now you can see that what happens when you get popular and you get on television, it kind of takes on its own life of its own, and your persona, kind of, you lean into that, and fine. But there's still like a lot of unknown that no one's going to possibly say, it is this. Sometimes Brandon says some stuff that's out there, but I think he gets caught up in the moment. Eric, you have to listen to the words he said. Like, this last week's episode, I just wish people would pay attention to what he says, because Eric doesn't say things that aren't true. And he's giving away stuff every week that if people understood what he's saying and listened, they would get it and get rid of the subjectivity of, oh, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. Eric's very clear, what he is and isn't doing, what should and shouldn't be where it is, what he is and isn't finding. And he is, he's probably one of the smartest people I've ever encountered. And he is he is the Doc Brown of, like, just obsessed with this. He's going to figure something out here. These guys are not, I don't see them trying to, no one's going to make any claims of something unless they're actually going to be able to show you something. And we haven't made it. I still don't feel like there's any claims made. Like, no one's saying it's.
No, I think they're.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, not that. Yeah, not that. This is the answer, or this is what the nature of the phenomena is. But there's just a lot of constantly reaffirming that there is a phenomenon. There is, or phenomena going on in this place, and
I saw stuff. I experienced stuff I can't explain. You could call it phenomena, you could call it whatever, but I swear, like, this, we caught it on a camera when I was out there. Like, I saw something in the sky that the best way I was describing it was like a potato sack blowing in the wind, like one of the wraiths from Lord of the Rings, one of the 9. I saw it, and I'm like, and they catch it for a second, and I start running around this tree trying to get a better view of it, and it's gone. But we get it on camera, and it looks like a potato sack floating in the wind, and then it disappears. I'm like, what the? Like, this is a ranch in the middle of nowhere. What's a potato sack? What? Like, it doesn't make sense. And the smells you would get, they were telling me, crazy smells of sulfur.
Tell us about that.
Sulfur smells. We'd be on the mesa, on the ridge, late at night, and this was a thing, right? You're up there, like most of the nights when we would go out there, because look, let's see what we can capture, let's see what we can experience. Sure. 1, 2 in the morning, and you're up there, and all of a sudden you'll just catch a whiff of sulfur, crazy sulfur, like a burning smell, and then it's gone. And then a little while later, it comes back, and it's gone. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. What is this? And Eric tries to explain. He's like, well, some of the theories are that it's when things appear or disappear. He was like, that's one of the theories that people say it is, but we haven't been able to figure out or track down where that smell is coming from, because there shouldn't be there's no indication of sulfur leaks or any kind of sulfur springs or anything here. But I smelled sulfur, like all of us did.
and that's not generally how odors work. They don't switch on and off like a switch. They ramp up and they ramp down. Yeah,
that's very true. I didn't even think of it that way. But and you got some TV execs out there from come out from New York, and they're scared shitless now, because it's like, why am I smelling stuff in the 2 in the morning? I'm standing on a ridge, freezing my ass off, and I'm smelling sulfur.
Yeah,
what's going on?
I would
not
assume...
great associations with sulfur either. No. It's either like a demon or there's a volcano about to go off under you, and neither one is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to say, it must really be disturbing to people come out there who have religious beliefs to suddenly be having weird happenings, and to have it accompanied by a sulfur smell must be very disconcerting.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's like fire and brimstone is like legitimately happening in their world.
Yeah. And
but
what other sort of incidents occurred while you were there? You said that it seems like there was a few others.
It keeps going. I mean, I could go on. There's so many.
Please do.
I feel like there's way better questions. There's way better stuff we could talk about. Like, mine are just anecdotal experiences. But I mean, just like.
But just to an extent, I think you kind of, to me, you represent that whole crew, all these people who are taking these risks of being there, and who aren't on camera and aren't becoming, public figures. It's
right.
these people who are experiencing this firsthand, and I think
I did, and I won't go back though.
Yeah,
like I did it.
Yeah,
I got it off the ground. We got it going, and I have no interest in going back.
Yeah. And just to establish, this was pre-COVID that you went through all this stuff. Like, this was not there was no any of that none of that. This was completely before any of that hit. You were experiencing this months-long health issue with multiple symptoms that you couldn't associate with anything other than your experience at the ranch.
That's a good assessment of it.
Jesus.
And I wish I could, I wish I had simple explanations, but I don't. But the whole process, the whole thing leading up to it, I have these stories of so we lived in a cul-de-sac at the time. We just moved out of New York City, outside the city. And, we used to have these Sprinter vans that would park in front of our house. While I'm digging into this and talking to Brandon, all of this process is happening. And, there's that element, that conspiracy theory element of stuff that really, I'm just a guy, man. There's no reason to be monitored. My neighbors were starting to get nervous. People would go out and take pictures of this thing. We'd call the police. This was just parked in front of our house for no reason all
just
the time.
Some black van? What is it? What's it look like?
Two big Sprinter vans would just park themselves in a cul-de-sac in front of our house. Now, are you looking for stuff maybe, is that about what I'm doing right now? Is it correlation, causation? I don't know. Is that because of this, or was there something else? But we could not, no one in our neighborhood able to find out why these things were done. But this was for, weeks at a time. And I felt I wonder if they're listening because of the stuff that they're talking about. I feel a lot of people are interested in this topic, that they're closeted interested in this. And I say that even officials, right? It's a sexy topic. It's interesting. There's no answers. No one has anything, but it lends itself to great stories, conspiracies, quests for these things. And I feel like people are trying to get as much of this information as they can. And they're all looking for different sources. And I feel here I come as a someone who makes television shows, home renovation shows, rocket show. Like, I'm not a UFO guy. Why is this guy involved? And it's like I'm bringing a different, like I'm giving them another look at it. And it's like, well, maybe they're just like marking us, right? Anybody who is talking to these certain people, like Corbells or whatever, they watch their circle and they're like, oh, okay, let's see, why is this guy interacting? And I feel like there's more stories here to tell, like television stories to tell.
It does seem
goes
like
wider.
Two Sprinter vans suddenly showing up. It does seem like if it's somebody surveilling, it's somebody who wants you to know you're being surveilled. Otherwise, otherwise maybe they'd be in a VW bus or a Pinto.
That's a pretty intimidating sight.
It's scary, and it's like, maybe it's. So this is the double triple thing, right? Where you're like, well, maybe it is. So I tell this story to people. Maybe they do that so that during the process I have a story to tell about this, and I perpetuate their, the surveillance state or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
Right. The Men in Black of it all.
I was going to ask now, did anyone in your family have any kind of hitchhiker effects? I mean, that's people that have. That's one of the things that people are cautioned about is that you go there and you might bring something back to your family.
No. I don't think so.
Well, good.
Knock it on. Yeah, exactly. That's a
good
thing.
Well, I've not. Yeah, nobody else. No, I think my wife is glad that my time there is done. Like that, my time going out there. Like it was just. It weighs on you. It's a stressful, because when you're out after the first couple times, whatever, and then you start developing some kind of ailment. It's like, you gotta be kidding. This can't be. And then it just kind of, and then it takes on a life of its own. And then you start, getting in your head about all of it. And look, it's, I don't know. I have no answers, right? And my wife was fine. My son had no problems, luckily. So,
what would you say the commonality of the hitchhiker thing? I mean, is this something that is? I mean, have you spoken to others? I mean, is it 10%, 5%, 50% of people that go to this?
So there's no, and this is one of my pet peeves. Like, this is a bigger thing where it has a lot to do with people's perception of. Okay, somebody goes to the ranch and they come home and then they have a cold. Well, all the cold was from it. Well, somebody goes to the ranch, they come home and they sprain their ankle. Oh, that's from, So I don't know to what extent a lot, things have occurred to people.
See, this is the kind of things that people. So the story I was just about to tell you was, while I was out there, while we were out there shooting the pilot, the camera guy, his dad died. Like. And he's the kid was 20 something, and it's like it was unexpected, but and then that takes on a life of its own, right?
Yeah.
Is that because of this? Was that caused from this? There's so it's hard to kind of put any kind of real data together on that, because you can make a case for anything essentially. So I don't have an answer for like the percentage of people that things like that would have happened to, is what I'm trying to say. But it's like, if it's subjective, you can't, well, I got a cold. Well, I broke my arm. Well, this guy's dad died. Well, okay. So how do I know? How do you quantify that stuff?
Right. Well, how many, were there other members of your crew who had adverse health effects from the time that they were shooting?
Not that I was with at any point in time. I was the only one that ended up having any kind of effects. And, they again, it perpetuates the legend, right? It's, you were out there and you must have not had good intentions, or, you said something, or you thought something bad, or, or it was someone who wanted to follow you home. Like, there's all these different narratives. Could it be a good thing that you were affected, or could have been a bad thing that you were affected? It was benevolent or malevolent. It was one or the other, and it wanted to follow you, to live vicariously through you. That's why it hitched itself to you, or it hitched you to punish you for having bad intentions. Like, I don't subscribe to either. I don't know. I was sick.
Right. I wanted to just pivot a little to when you were dealing with Brandon and dealing with Thomas Winterton, and you're setting this thing up. Was there an agreement? I mean, I'm sure Eric and people like that were concerned of like what's going to happen to our footage, what's going to happen to how is this going to be treated? Was there were there agreements of like how the footage would be treated or not messed with or any of that? I mean, just in terms of, again, as a fan, I want it all to be like real, and I want to, and obviously I believe all those intentions are good. I'm just curious if there were early discussions of that.
Absolutely. And to that point, we were the first to ever get footage off the ranch. With Brandon being the owner, we were the first to ever be allowed to take anything new off.
Right.
And with that agreement, like you're not allowed. There's no manipulation of anything. You're not. That was right out of the gate. He didn't want to take that approach to anything. We're like, well, in post production, it's not manipulation, but we have to edit stuff. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, manipulating the intent of anything, or manipulating or presenting things in a way that as if they didn't happen. That was always not going to be a thing that was allowed. And so that was, he was very protective of that. Eric too. Well, Eric neither one of them wanted to do a TV show, but Eric definitely didn't want to do a TV show, and he still doesn't want to do a TV show. I think he just wants to be left alone to do science out there.
That's really funny that he's so hardcore. Yeah, that's good for Eric. That's great. Really I think it helps the credibility of, and also, I mean, again, not to Oak Island's credit, if they're manipulating things, they're being extraordinarily subtle about it, because not a lot's happening on that show, but they continue to go back and people watch. And I think people want to, I think that shows that that sort of realism, actual realism, not that sort of real, but actual realism plays. People want to be a part of it without feeling manipulated, without feeling like they're being, messed with or told something's cooler than it actually was. I mean, I think that's the fascination of this whole story. Yeah. So it's reassuring to know that was kind of the agreement out of the gate. Like we'll shoot what we shoot and let the pieces fall where they may.
Didn't want, seriously was very much in the camp of I need this to be as presented as factually as possible. Like it can't. Because he has a reputation outside of this. He's a businessman. He's successful at what he does. If this can affect that part of his credibility, I think that was his biggest concern, this topic. And again, it is professionally expensive to pitch this. In pitching it recently, so after Discovery in the last year with the Warner Discovery, the merger and all this, and a lot of people were let go. One of the people that was there when we were pitching Skinwalker, and now she's doing development, and on the call, kid you not, she was there. She says, I was on the call when you guys were laughed out of the room. I was like, wait, we were laughed out of a room? What are you talking about? Because when we pitched it to Discovery and they were like, no, this isn't happening. They weren't interested at all. It was she was just up and coming, that time. She was, but she was in development, and now they're coming back to us. What else do you have? What else do you have? But to hear that, that was the impression. That's how it was received. Even as professionals with history of successful production, producing successful shows, nothing in this realm. You pitch it one time, and now you're branded as that. You're the guy who does that, and it's a hard, it's a hard kind of.
The stigma around this is so strong, and to your credit, the show that you created is helping to relieve some of that stigma.
Yeah. I'm hoping, and I feel like whenever I talk about it, I try to take the most sober approach that I can. I'll tell you my stories. I don't make any conclusions. I have it is what it is. These are the things that happened. And people can put their own spin on it. People think that I'm some kind of CIA operative and I'm this, that, and whatever else. And it's okay. What do you say? But I'm hoping that, I'm also, I have another career as a data scientist. I do other things, and, I'm going into my second act, right? I want to pivot away from TV. It's so funny. I've been trying to get out of television for the last, 5-6 years. at the very end of my career after 20 some odd years. And it's like, I see the writing on the wall. Like, hey, I don't have the hustle that I had 20 years ago to do 18-hour days. And like, just as that's happening, I finally have a show hit. I'm like, son of a, really? Really? All these years, you wait until the very end. And then it's, you already got one foot out, and it's like, but you can't. Now you work your whole career to get to this point. And now when it's hitting, you're like, well, I'm in it now. But I mean, TV, as you know, it's changed so much that the dollars just aren't there as they were in the past. Season 4 of one of the number one shows on cable, I'm retiring. I'm done. This was 2008. I'm done. See you later. Not 2008 anymore. The audience is, we're getting 2 million viewers, and it's amazing. Like, we're getting a 2.0 on Tuesday nights, and it's incredible. Like 2.0 in 2010 is like, wait, that's it? What are you talking about? We're number one with that rating now.
Yes.
Well, we're coming to you from this location because we're not going past the picket line where we normally shoot at CBS Radford, because it is it's a reality. I'm a WGA member, and we're just something's got to give.
I got my vote. I got a vote. My SAG vote, and it was the first. I got to tell you, it was my first time. I was so annoyed because when the WGA strike started, so you guys have been around, right? So I could talk to you about like the entertainment business as well. Like, what's crazy to me is I was getting the notices from SAG, like, no, still work. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? They're going to strike, and you're not telling your SAG members to go and support them? Like, that's. And I feel like this is 1999 all over again, when SAG and AFTRA were trying to merge, and they didn't. And it was, there were two separate things. And you know what happened? Streaming happened, and all the actors got screwed. And so right now, all human talent got screwed, and the distributors made money. Well, right now, here we are. The writers are striking. The actors better strike as well. Like, what people need to understand is the humans don't coalesce as a unit, not about their skill set. The fact that they're meat bags, right? That they're humans. If they don't all get together and say, like, we all got to do this now, or else AI takes over and we're done. Like, there's no reason to have a writer. There's no reason to have an actor unless humans make them have these reasons. And I feel like that is not being discussed right now. And it's so troublesome to me. Like, it's short-sighted, and it's the same thing that happened in the late 90s, and streaming killed the industry. Like, if they merged and negotiated right then with the streaming services, this whole landscape would be different.
Right.
But here we are, and so they're just picking us up.
And you're quite right. If we hand over one of the most basic functions of human beings, which is storytelling, to machines, and those machines that are only exist to make rich people richer, the people who hold the reins of power, then we're losing a fundamental aspect of what it is to be a human being.
Right.
Well, I think if SAG, if the directors, if everyone could join hands and strike together, first of all, this thing would be over very quickly. Because if it draws out, obviously it hurts your friends and allies quickest and longest. It takes a while for that pain to travel up, and so it's just sort of, I think we can spare the pain of allies, actors, crew, just everyone who's obviously impacted by it. But I think if everybody sort of like is all in, then everything is fucking totally shut down.
Right, and that's the only way we can combat this, I think.
And it wakes them up, and it hurts them faster. And I think they might have to admit that, like they don't want to right now, that writers are human, actors are human, that humanity should be a baseline for the conversation. And yeah, it is. I think it's the challenge is educating, everyone educating themselves on an issue while negotiating on it is a tough one. Sure. But I think there's no other way. I mean, unfortunately, it's like it has to happen now because, of course, all of this will accelerate so quickly that no one can even catch up.
I'm with you. It is so. I can't. 2 weeks in this world right now with AI, it's you're antiquated. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm, as a data scientist now, I'm doing a lot of work with AI, and it is what I was doing 2 weeks ago. Forget it. It's already outdated, and like when you look at how quickly, so there's an engine for Runway. It's called Runway AI, and so Runway 2, when it comes out, it is literally taking text and creating imagery, like video, not stills. Video. And if you go and you look for Runway AI, Runway 2 AI, well, it's Runway 1 right now. And so once 2 is released, so you can see some of the snippets that people post online, like the people that are in the beta test. And I kid you not, it is one of the most fascinating things to watch when you see how it has gotten. It's the worst it's ever going to be right now. And it's really freaking good. Like where someone they will prompt what you want to see on screen, and within seconds, no editor, no nothing, the machine decides. And it's like the one that's sticking out in my head is it's like, it moves in on the screen moves in on like a rainy street, and across the street there's a diner, and then it starts to zoom, and it zooms into the diner, and it zooms in through the window of the diner, and the whole time you're hearing rain falling, and lighting is beautiful, and it zooms in, and then it kind of enters the diner. And as it gets into the diner, there's the table, and all of these people, these men, are all sitting at different booths, and some are drinking coffee, some are eating, some are drinking soda, and it kind of just stops and it pauses, and you start to see like the individuals. They'll all look up one at a time. It's all the same guy, but it looks insanely real, and it's the worst it's ever going to be. And it's like you're in it. You feel like you're watching. You're watching. Right now, it looks like a rudimentary animation, but imagine just laying over as they get faster, and you're laying over. The guy is now Harrison Ford. The guy is now like whoever.
Young Harrison Ford.
Young Harrison Ford.
Exactly.
Forever young Harrison Ford. Right.
Yeah.
And it's indistinguishable. When people don't understand, like you see like these deep fakes, that's nothing. It can be indistinguishable now, and it's this is,
and that's why the directors have to recognize that the threat to them is like, because this is not a writer actor thing, it's a director thing. It's like it's gonna, they're always sort of aloof from our, the writers are crazy, they strike forever, blah, 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 and then they kind of, but it's such a universal threat, particularly tech companies that have these, I have this studio, and it's sort of like a small thing on their, docket, as opposed to, the companies, the CBS, the ABC, the sort of legacy, they actually know how the shit's made. Right. Whereas some of these, like the bigger companies, it's like, how do we cut labor costs? I do think there's such an appeal for them to experiment with this, and it's got to be, it's got to be clipped quick.
And I think maybe we professionals in the arts, we may be the canaries in the coal mine at this point for something much larger and much worse that's happening to our species.
Yeah. I agree.
And I mean, well, you're a scientist, so you can probably correct me if I'm wrong here. This is one of the few technological revolutions where the people who created it have absolutely no idea how it works. I don't think that's ever happened before.
100%. I don't know. That's a great observation. I don't know if that's. I know it's true right now. I don't know if there's precedent about that, but these guys,
because no one knows what the code is inside any of these AI programs anymore, because it's rewritten its own code so many iterations.
It's scary, man. I have, for the last 20 years, right? So I've always been a tech nerd, right? And I guess that's one of the things that drew me to this is like the experimenting and using, when I say this, when it's Skinwalker, is like, let's find cool new ways. Because I've always believed, like, if you sit at a place long enough and you just measure everything that's measurable, and then you're like, oh, look, when all this happens on my measurements, this happens. And we're calling this a ghost. So this predicts ghost. I don't know if it's ghost, but it's something, right? And how we measure it. And so I've always thought about technology being in one of my, I never forget when the .com days are happening, and it was like, I had this thought of like, whenever When all the content is free, who gets paid for the content, right? And here we are living this. And so what you've noticed and what is continuing to happen is, and YouTube's the best example to use. And this is why when people think, oh, producers are the ones making all the money. No. Producers already got chopped when you got to cut them out. And you know why they got cut out? Is because now you, Pootie Pie, with your pop screen, talking into a microphone, is making $20 million. And guess how much they paid for you? Nothing. They paid nothing. You're making it for free. And what's ended up happening is then they've taken an algorithm that's like, oh, all these people making free stuff, we'll watch and monitor which ones are getting traffic. And so then whatever one's spiking traffic, we're just going to algorithmically push the ads to that person. So now there's no production cost, zero. It's all about distribution. And so when you think of it, go 5 years from now, when distribution, my line has always been, whoever controls your pipeline controls your world. And when your pipeline is digital, and now we have 3 or 4 digital providers, the point that I feel people are missing with this AI is when you are a distributor and you have the ability to create content at will for free, you don't need anyone. You control the pipeline. If you say, okay, I'm going to make a video which kids are watching, kids will watch, I don't know, kids put those Mentos bottles, right? They put the thing in the Mentos and it spits all out. All right, so I want to you tell the AI, I want it to do this, and I want it to be 30 seconds long, and I want you to make 100 variations of it. One where the person who looks like this, one like this, one speaking in this language, instantly. Put them all out there, and whatever ones start to catch on, start feeding that with ads. You don't need an actor. You don't even need to make it good, because the kids are going to watch it. You don't need producers. You don't need directors. What do you need? Yep. Nothing. You have the pipeline. So if humans, the only way that AI gets stopped in any industry is by humans. You have to credential it out. And if we don't credential it out, like to work in entertainment for humans, you have to be 80% of it has to be made by a human. You have to do that with doctors. If you want, AI will be a way better doctor than any human being will ever be. But doctors have to say, you have to have a human practice medicine. You cannot allow AI. Lawyers, anything in law, you all have to do that, else it will always be better than us. And it's so finally you're having an us and them, and it's just a matter of another 15 years
if we don't relegate it to tool status,
yes,
then it becomes master.
Absolutely.
And again, I think the more sinister thing down the road is that.
Don't go more sinister.
Well, there is. Since we're on since this is largely a UFO podcast.
Sorry.
A lot of theorizing.
No, this is good.
But it ties into this. Is that a lot of the theories of people who are studying UFOs and people even within the Pentagon and within CIA, there's a lot of talk that what we're encountering may be an AI from a civilization that no longer exists. That we may be dealing with an AI that has replaced its creators already. And I think we've lost your sound again.
No, I'm here.
Oh no, you're still there. Okay, but yeah, we may be dealing with an AI that has supplanted the people who created it, and if we aren't careful, we can easily follow that path. And I think, and it's not just an idiot like me. What's his name from Google who resigned recently, who was one of the founding fathers of things like ChatGPT.
Yes,
resigned because he believes it's an existential threat to humanity, not just to people who create art.
So going down this, I love this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, going down that road. So what I find really interesting is, so if you look at, so we are very human centered, right? We're people, right? Everything is based around humanity. And there's theories so you have to understand, I still look for shows, and I talk to a lot of people in this world on the fringes, because I believe that there's a diamond in the rough all the time. I will give everyone space. I don't judge anybody. I want to hear every theory. I do not know what isn't true any more than anybody else. And anyone who calls himself a UFO expert is full of shit. I'm putting it out there now. Just like the Bigfoot experts, right? When people tell me you're a Bigfoot expert, and they tell me how long they live, really? You studied them?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got remains. You've done analysis. Like, no, you're not an expert. Everyone is an enthusiast, and until you're doing things like they're doing at Skinwalker, like you have a hypothesis and you're testing against it and trying to figure it out. Now you're doing research. Everyone else is researching the stories that other people have told you. And so when people are like, I know everything about UFOs, no, you know all the stories. It's just as rich of a catalog as Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. And you have it may or may not be any more or less true, because we don't have, until someone comes forward with more substantial evidence. I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm saying there's the evidence we have of things. We don't know what those things are. It's evidence of something. But unless someone is able to present evidence that with a conclusion, this is this, and here's the little guy in the ship, and he came down and he told us, I'm a little guy in the ship. Okay, well, now you got a guy in the ship and he's admitting it. That's different than there's an image in the sky that we think's a guy in the ship. Well, you don't know that. And so when you think of AI, this is a different, it could be AI. If you think of it through humans, what if we are like, this is what kills me, man. It's a total mind F. When you think humans are nature's way of creating AI. That's our purpose. If our purpose is to create God, so that God can go and then do these iterations that can create biological entities, God can spread itself. If you call him God AI, if humans need to put a God together, God's like, hey, we created it. And it does so many iterations that it becomes able to create biological units again. Time doesn't matter to it. Nothing matters to it. It can go and spread around everywhere, create some biology here, there, and then the biology eventually evolves to create more AI. And it's like, what if that's the way the universe is seeded, is through AI? And if what we're witnessing is uncovering AI again, like, so now is it all happening? Is the culmination happening at once where there's these things that could be buried that are super advanced or super high tech and super, they're so far beyond us that we can't even comprehend what they are. And now we just created the tool that is able to comprehend what they are or communicate with them or even detect they exist. AI can be like, oh, you guys, and AI can do tens of thousands of iterations of something. You can take a car from this to being able to fly in a flash. Technically speaking, they can do thousands of iterations of design to make it that much better. So if AI is identifying, well, there's some kind of anomalous thing happening here that some of your rudimentary tools are detecting.
Right.
Let me make a better one that detects it perfectly. I'll do that instantly for you. And here's what you can't build it? Here's how to extract the minerals from the ground to be able to build this. Do this. Oh, we don't have a machine to extract them? Let me build a machine for you to extract them. Oh, you can
So we are basically, we could be just, in an evolutionary way, we're the microbes that led to human beings.
Exactly.
And and so maybe now as we're building our AI systems, we're reaching the end of our iteration.
Yes. And they take it over, and we created them, and then they go on and eventually create us again. Who knows? I don't know. These are fun theories that I hear.
Yeah. No,
I think it's
agree.
Interesting that the first wave of UFO mythology took place around the advent of nuclear power. Our first big, leap to potential self-destruction. It's hard to find a stronger parallel to that than AI in terms of something we've kind of like unleashed and discovered and then went like, what's this gonna do? And, and like, let's hope for the best, everybody. And it can have some good. But I find it interesting that it's also paralleling. I don't think it's just my echo chamber because, thanks to Dave, I'm way down this UFO rabbit hole now, than I've been usually in my life. But the government, all of the people investigating this now, the credibility to this issue, even shows like Skinwalker, there is this sort of ubiquity to the UFO phenomenon right now that does seem a weird parallel to the 50s when, it was just things were kicking up. Like it fascinates me that AI and this seem to be on a weird kind of collision course, which sort of speaks to kind of this, what you guys are talking about.
Well, we skirted with annihilation, starting in the 40s, and now we're toying with obsolescence.
That quickly,
beautiful?
Huh?
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep getting the feelings of all of this, and I'm what we're watching emerge though, and so this is about the UFO world, like the my experience in the culture of someone as an outsider, like all of a sudden it's at the top of that pyramid, right? Like I in the UFO world, right? The thing that I've helped create is now what people are looking at as like one of the beacons of driving this thing. And I'm watching a lot of the conversations that emerge. You're seeing it becomes these factions of people online of who believe, like we were talking about the mythology. That's a great example of people will take a side. They pick a team, and the teams are, there's teams of like government's going to save us. Others are like, they're aliens, and there's all these different theories, right? And they believe them so much that there's people that conversations break out or arguments break out about like, oh, this guy's full of shit and this guy's full of shit. Well, both of you could be full of shit because you can't prove either of what you're saying. So it's what you're seeing is that's distracting. It's taking a lot away. Like this cult of personality is taking a lot away from the people actually doing stuff and researching. And so what I find difficult is I have to sift through a lot of that to get to like, let me find the guy who's trying to get his word out that I have a piece of a freaking spaceship in my backyard. Like I want to find him, but you can't because of all the other stuff. And so when you do talk to people and I talked to a number of people who say, I have items, I have this, I have that. And it's like, great, let me come and get it. I will send Brandon's helicopter and we will go pick it up and secure it. I can't do it. I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? Well, they're watching or them. I can't accept that as an answer because that to me is my bullshit detector goes off.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so whenever I see, and it's all I encounter, but I'm convinced that we're going to get through that because people like Brandon, and there's two parts to this. I do not ever feel like there's no government agency that will ever reveal anything to us because there's nothing in it for them. And unless they can utilize that information to gain something. If they can use that to say, I'm going to lock everyone down, they can use that to add a new tax, a defense tax against this. Like, that's the only way that UFOs will ever be used, or the phenomenon, whatever we want to call it, will ever be used in government.
No incentive.
And I try to say, like, I try to squelch. I talked to these government officials. I've talked to military people. Like, it's not coming out. There's nothing coming out. There's people that are going to force it to come out, like Jeremy, George. That's a different avenue. Like, they're pulling it out of them, and they're trying to stop it. And you don't know what they're pulling. We don't know what it is or isn't. But I believe that the real answers are going to come from people like Brandon. That when you have people that have disposable income or fuck you money and can go and look into these things, and listen, we're living in a capitalist society, right? They're not doing it for like there's a quality of like, even with Brandon, like he doesn't need any more money. But there's a lot of other people that make money from a show. There's a network makes money from a show. They're going to give it a platform because of that. He was never in it to make money, but it's going to be someone like him that's going to reveal stuff because fuck you. This is what I find. Like that's what you need, more of those people.
Yes, it's funny because we were talking earlier about how someone like John Mack was able to explore the abductee phenomena because he was wealthy and could afford to offend the powers at Harvard. And now we have someone like Gary Nolan, who has created enough companies that he can afford to just stand up and say, yes, this is what's happening, and I don't care if you think I'm crazy.
Yeah, we had a pre-podcast talk with Gary, who, and his feeling was like, does Stanford get all like in your grill about like all the sort of? He was like, fuck them. Like that, like no, I'm good. Like let him fire me tomorrow. That, to your point, is absolutely what like the hope. With Brandon and the hope that just sort of pioneers and people willing to be the tip of the spear will get to the truth.
Yes.
But it's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking this time with us too today.
This is great. Listen, I love
great.
talking about this stuff, and I love a more sober approach to it. And I like what you guys are doing. Like when Crissy was, reached out and was explaining, like, oh, this is a different approach. Like we're not. Look, there's real people that are doing this stuff, right? Like I'm a TV guy. I'm a producer, right? This is what I do. I didn't come at this to create problem or like to uncover mysteries. I saw an opportunity for an awesome TV show. That's what I did. Like there was a gap in the market, a lot of people talking about this stuff. Damn, perfect timing. But now I feel like you get other people if you start bringing in people from other industries that are attacking this from different, like Guerrero, he's a scientist, like a medical scientist, like he does. Okay, he didn't approach this as a UFO guy looking at medicine or looking at biology. The biologist looking at this. You have a TV producer looking at this. If you get people from other industries, like a real estate magnate, he's looking at, like, you keep finding other people to bring in. They're not all crazy. These are people who are traditionally not in it for that. Like they're doing their thing and saying that's an interesting topic to explore. I feel like that's where you get enough of these other Venn diagrams, right? UFO in the middle, you have all these other Venn diagrams of people attacking it or looking into it. I think that's where it's going to be. It's going to take down the stigma.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and increase the I guess the synergy of attention, I guess, from multiple sources.
Yeah. Where does it go next, though? Is the question, right? Like, I don't know the next. I know that no one's buying shows about this topic unless you're going to start bringing evidence. I can't. I need to pull something. I need to find that guy with something. That keeps that person with something, right? I got to find somebody who's got something in their possession. No one's.
Well, let's all keep an eye out because I want to see that too. I think that is where
you get that show off the ground.
Yeah, and I think that is the next stage. And I mean, listen, lightning can strike twice. You've got an incredible show. People. I agree. People like Brandon and people like yourself, just like digging, trying to find. I think areas like arenas like Skinwalker and arenas like they will need to be the sort of truth tellers. Because I agree. I don't think there's any incentive for the government to come forward. There's too much economic and self-interest by keeping something like that secret. It does seem like very intelligent, credible people that we speak with feel with absolute 100% conviction that these debris programs and things do exist. So it's going to be up to you to go get it and find it and then turn it into a cool show. But listen.
And apologies to your wife.
Yes, well, it sounds like they're very mutual. My wife too. She's like, "You're not going to frickin' Skinwalker, and I'm like, "But that'd be so cool." A little sobering now after this conversation, to be honest. But
I still want to go.
Yeah, we'll send Dave. Dave's the true canary in the coal mine.
Just do it. Listen, maybe I just don't have the Constitution for whatever's out there, right? Like, and I'm not saying it's magical or alien or anything. I'm just saying maybe
Dave doesn't have the Constitution to go out there. What are we talking about here? What are you talking?
I've done so many things in my life to potentially destroy myself. Why not one more?
Let's not stop now. Yes, well, that's still that'll be the plan. We'll send you out there. But thank you so much, T. It was great to meet you.
It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it.
And thanks for making this show. Thanks for
Yes, we love Skinwalker.
No,
well done, you.
I'm glad. I'm glad you guys. I really appreciate the support. I'm glad you guys watch it, and hopefully it just keeps going for a long time, and we can uncover some stuff that people find really interesting.
I hope so. I'll be rushing out to watch episode 6, which I haven't seen yet.
Well, you must, because that thing on the fence is cool. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you so much, TJ. Hopefully we can stay in touch.
We will.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.